Religion itself is under a lot of criticism in our culture today, isn't it? You know what people will say? There's those out there that, I'll tell you what the problem in the world is. It's religion. That's what causes all this problem. It's religion. And they want to do away with religion. And then they'll throw Christianity right in there as though it's just like all those religions causing problems. They'll say Christianity causes as much problems as Islam. That's what folks will say. Well, not what the Bible teaches Christianity doesn't. And then a lot of times when they criticize what they call Christianity, well, they're criticizing people that call themselves Christians. But everyone that says they're a Christian is not a Christian. And everyone that says they're a Christian doesn't behave like a Christian ought to behave. And so what this article is about, this front page article, is a defense of Christianity. And the title of it is Christianity the Problem? And it goes into some of those very things. Now, I summarized it in the bulletin, so you'll see it in the bulletin if you read the bulletin. But really, there's more to it here in this article. And there's such a good statement here about the restoration plea. Right here, it starts on this front page. So, Jesus built His church as He wanted it. Now, this isn't what man wanted. The emphasis here is on the way He wanted it. Jesus built His church as He wanted it. And then there's the scriptures, and those are in your bulletin here. In fact, this whole thing's quoted in your bulletin, but I'll just touch on it here. He forbade tampering with it. We've got the plan for God's church in this book. That's the way God wants it. And then it says in the book itself, don't change it. Don't teach other doctrines. Don't turn it into what you want it to be. No, this is the way it's supposed to be. And he says, those who violate His copyrights, change His patterns, and revise His doctrines come away with something different from His church. Surprisingly, their religions do not work as intended. And he goes on and explains some very fundamental things about what we call the restoration plea right here in the article. It does that further down in this publication too. There's an article later in here called Finding the Pearl of Great Price. Oh, it's just excellent. You know the parable about the fellow that found the pearl of great price and sold all he had that he could buy that one pearl of great price. Well, talking about how that pearl's special and it's unique, and so is the New Testament church. The New Testament church was built by Christ and belongs to Him. The New Testament church has a specific pattern of authority and a specific pattern of worship. We worship the way we do because of what we read in the New Testament. And so it talks about that in here. The New Testament church has a specific organization. But if we're going to be the New Testament church, we've got to restore those fundamental identifying marks of the church so it looks like this one. But let me caution us about something. That's not all there is to it. What if we all gathered together all at the right day and used all the right words and did all the right things, and yet we didn't behave ourselves the right way when we left here? You see, you could almost say you could restore the New Testament church, at least in appearance. What about restoring New Testament Christians? And we need to live that special life that the Bible teaches is a part of this as well. And that is where this article comes into play. Christianity is not the problem. That's not the problem. Here's what Christianity will teach us. Christians treat others as they wish to be treated and are kind to those who are not. Christians help the sick, homeless, and disenfranchised, expecting nothing in return. As citizens, Christians obey laws and pay taxes. As neighbors, Christians live in peace with others. As to worldview, Christians believe life here is preparation for life hereafter. Sexually, Christians believe in modesty, purity, and marital faithfulness. As families, Christians believe in lifelong commitments while helping those without families. Christians believe in teaching without coercion. So we don't intimidate people. We don't make people go to church. We don't force people to do what's right. We teach people so they'll change from the heart and do what's right because it's right and they want to do what's right. Distinguishing marks of Christianity is more than just about organizations and forms of worship and saying the right, calling Bible things by Bible names. It gets down to how we live as well. And so that's the feature article that is in this publication that we've sent all the way from McMinnville to Biola, and there's going to be copies of that there in the back. Something else that they sent us, and I'm not going to pass this out, but if you want it, I want you to have it, okay? Because when I've tried to pass this out earlier, it just got all in a mess, and I can tell people, there's 8 booklets here in a correspondence course. And what it did, advertising this, it advertised that we've got a correspondence course, and so they sent us the correspondence course. So if someone requests a correspondence course, I want to have copies that I can send to them and help them. Now here's the thing. On the back of this publication, here's what they did. They said, want to know more about the Bible? Sign up for a free introduction to the correspondence course in English or Spanish. And then it repeats that, and it's all in Spanish. And I can't read it. I can't. But it's in Spanish here too. You know, we've got people around here that have trouble speaking English and know Spanish. Do you know someone? You know someone like that? I know some. They're my neighbors. Laura and I went down there and took them a copy of this correspondence course. The girl, she reads English and speaks English very well. I tell you what she said. Oh, thank you so much. My daddy is a preacher. I said, does he speak English? She said, not very well, but he can read this. I'm going to give this to him. Oh, I'm so glad. I hope we establish more contact with them. Do you know someone that speaks Spanish or no? And if we don't, we've got a church meeting, a Spanish congregation. I'm going to give it to them so they can use it, but it's for us. So I'm not going to put this in the back. I've got it in English and in Spanish. 8 lessons, introduction to the Bible, principles of Bible interpretation, 3 facts that change the world forever. That's lesson 3. Lesson 4, study of covenants. Lesson 5, can God really forgive me? Lesson 6, terms of forgiveness. Lesson 7, heaven is only 4 steps away. And that's part 1 and part 2, lesson 8. Now you might want to take that course yourself. If you do, let me know. And I'll make sure you get one, or if you want one otherwise. But I'll do that. I won't put those out on the table because we'll need them for those that want to do it, and they get mixed up out there, and we haven't been able to do it before. Now, I'm going to run out of time, and there's so much. Most of these tracks are on the track rack. I've already put them up. They're the ones on top that I'm going to cover right quick about what they have in the tracks. But it says here in this publication we sent out, how to build trust in a marriage. Now that's one of the articles. It's not a very long article. But then there's also a tract sent out on this called Married for Life. See, that's how marriage is supposed to be. Married for life. How do people do that? How do they get married? I'll tell you, you get married and through those years, Laura and I have been married 40 years this year. And we're not the same people we were 40 years ago. How come we're still married to each other? And hadn't all these changes changed us? No, we're still married. And it talks about some fundamentals. Some of them have been married longer than us, hadn't you? All right, you're up there. You're still married. Maybe I ought to ask you to teach this lesson. How did you do that? You know, okay, here's what it is. You have faith in God, faith in God's plan for the family. That's what, it's not about what does God say the family ought to be? You're patient with each other's failings. You cooperate and communicate. You persevere when days are dark. You know, everything in life's not going to be good for all those years. But when they're not going good, listen, you stay with it even through those times you don't really like each other much. You just hang to it. That's what you do. Like the one fella, you hang in there. That's what you do. You hang in there and you get it done. You pursue the same goals. And you love each other without reserve. And you resist worldliness and don't trust material things, and spend time together and trust the Lord and each other. Now that's how you do it. Marital unfaithfulness will destroy a marriage. You got to be faithful. But it's not just being faithful. Now, for the marriage to last and be what it has to be, it's these fundamental things that you do. And the basic thing is, you got to remember this is a sacred covenant. It's not just between me and him or me and her. It's between us and God. And what God joined together, let not man put asunder. Now you go into marriage understanding that. Then you stick with it. You stick with it when you have problems. And some marriages can even overcome marriage unfaithfulness. Some marriage can even overcome that. But there's an exception there. The Lord says you can. You don't have to stay with that. That's the one exception. Okay? So that's what God teaches. Now there's also this. This is the next one on the books of the Bible, little summary. And this is on the book of Acts. Tells you what's in each chapter. And so we've got Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Now here's the one on Acts. And there'll be some of those out there. A tract on pornography. I remember pornography when I was a young man. Not because I looked at it. I saw it. But I didn't pick it up to look at it. Someone, will hold up a picture or something and everybody laughs. And I knew what it was, and I knew not to look at it. I knew that. And now they say all you got to do is just get on the internet and just download it. And you think it's private. They keep records on all that, though. They know what you're looking at. They're looking at you. When you're looking at something, they're looking at you. And they say one of these days all that's going to be made public. So don't think you're in private doing that, but it can destroy your mind, and that's not the way to think about what God has made, not in this way. And so this just discusses the matter of pornography and how to overcome it if you get caught up into that. Here's a beautiful little track, Old Age. Taking care or taking advantage. I tell you, it just makes my butt. It's kind of like child abuse. You see people take advantage of little bitty children, and then I see people take advantage of the elderly, and I feel about the same way. And people take advantage. But then it talks about how to care for the older and what elderly people want. We will want others to take time for our loneliness. We'll want others to have patience with our infirmities. We'll want others to respect our thoughts. We will want physical assistance. Okay, it's honorable to care for the aged, and the Bible teaches that. So there's a tract on that. Here's one, loneliness. I was reading the other day on the internet, and I don't know if I believe everything the internet says, but they say loneliness is one of the big social problems in America today. Loneliness. Well, when families break apart, I think loneliness just follows. So here's a tract on loneliness, how to cope with it, and how to give assistance and recognize those who are lonely and how to help. Here's a good one around this time of year. I spoke on this a little bit last week. Scruples. You know what scruples are? That's something people are doing. Say, well, I don't feel good about that. And it may not be wrong. It may not be wrong, but it may be something that you just don't feel good about. Well, what about that? How do you deal with these scruples that we have? And Romans chapter 14 is a whole chapter written about scruples. And so it's just a little tract, carries you through Romans 14 and teaches you how to really look at yourself and also how to have patience with others who may not share the same scruples you have. Now listen, there's things that are right and wrong, and that's not what we're talking about. But there are other things that maybe it's not really right and wrong. It just didn't, to us, in our opinion, it just didn't seem like it all. I'm not going to do that. And we got to be careful about judging others in things that are really all right for them to do, but you don't have to do it. See? So that's what this is talking about. The sins of a caveman. Did you know that you read about a caveman in the Bible? Think who that is. There's a caveman in the Bible, and he sinned. His name is Lot. When Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed, Lot left those cities and went up and lived in a cave. So that makes him a caveman. Isn't that what a caveman is? Caveman's a man who lives in a cave. You know, I was a caveman for a night or two. And when I was out camping, I spent the night in the cave one night, and me and the cave mice, okay? Me and the cave mice were in there. But anyway, sins of a caveman. Lot let the world take his children. Lot let wine take his mind. Lot let his family take his righteousness. Lot let his descendants take his legacy. Let me read the last part of this. Look at society today. See how alcoholism, sexual immorality, and lack of discipline affect family life. Modern civilization has not moved all that far from the ancient caveman, has it? Okay, sins of a caveman. Here's a reason that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That's the name of this tract. What would you think that would be? You know, James tells us to be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. The context of James saying that, we need to be swift to hear God, slow to speak our mind, and don't get mad about it. Don't get mad about it. And so that's really where this takes us here, being swift to hear. We need to be swift to hear God. And that's the context in which James is writing those things. God's stewards. Well, I'm going to run out of time here. We're stewards. We've got so many gifts. And sometimes we think stewardship ends with money, but we have our minds and our opportunities and our health and our Bibles. We've got things we're responsible for, and we need to be good stewards. And so there's a tract on stewardship. There's a Proverbs chapter 6. Here it is. Proverbs 6. Let me read this. There are 6 things, these 6 things doth the Lord hate. Yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren. Alan Webster has written a tract on all 7 of those things, and 3 of them are in this, and we'll probably be getting the others later. 7 things God's hate. 1 on a proud look, 1 on a false witness that speaketh lies, and 1 on feet swift in running to mischief. And I feel sure those others will follow. He sent those out before, and those will follow. Gold-plated Christianity. You know what it is when you have gold plate? It looks like gold, but it's not. It's just gold plate. See? It just looks like, it's not solid gold, it's just gold plate. And I tell you, there's a big difference, isn't it? In gold plate and solid gold, isn't there? What about gold-plated Christianity? Gold-plated Christian is religious, but not righteous. A gold-plated Christian is harmless, but not helpful. A gold-plated Christian is clean on the outside, but not on the inside. A gold-plated Christian goes 1 mile. You know, the Bible says go with him twain. Doesn't go 2. Just does just what I have to do. A gold-plated Christian forgives but doesn't forget. A gold-plated Christian attends church but doesn't worship. You know, there's folks that come to watch worship. Or they may even mouth the songs out and pretend like they're praying, but their mind is somewhere else. There's more to it than worship. Now, a gold-plated Christian will kind of go through the motions. They're not worshiping. And so you don't want to be a gold-plated Christian. You want to be true. And so I'll end it with this last track. Does God require us to do anything to be saved? See, we can't save ourselves. We can't pay the price for our own sin. There's something God had to do. But then there's a cooperative effort between God and man, and He expects us to do something as well. Does God require anything to do to be saved? Well, the view that a sinner does not have to do anything is consistent with how God acts of His grace received from the beginning. You know, Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, but he had to build an ark, didn't he? All right, talks about that. Talks about Jericho. The walls of Jericho fell, and God said, I've given to you Jericho. But now, if you want it, you got to march around it and be quiet while you do it, and then sound the trumpets at the end. Remember, God gave instructions. There's something man had to do to receive that gift. And it goes on with another example. This view is inconsistent with what Jesus taught. It's inconsistent with what the apostles preached. This view fails to differentiate between kinds of works. People say, well, we can't save by works, but there's works of obedience. We're not trying to be good enough to be saved. When we just obey what God says, they're works of obedience. And so, for the invitation, you need to obey the gospel if you're going to be saved. Don't think you can be saved without obeying the gospel. I heard a fella watching a preacher the other night says, you're not going to raise your hand in the church. That's not how you get in, by raising your hand. You don't pray yourself into the church. That's not how you do it. You're baptized into Christ, and God adds you to His church. And so you have to obey. You have to obey. Don't let anyone tell you you don't have to do what God says. On the surface, you ought to know that can't be right. You got to do what God says. And so, after you've heard the truth, you need to believe it and turn from your sin and confess His name before men and be baptized into Christ and come up out of that water and live that life. And then you can be sure of heaven. So with that, I extend this invitation as we stand and sing this song.